Tuesday edition of the Art Lewis Show on this 10th day of February. Coming up after the 10 o'clock news this morning, we will be chatting with Jarup Scarup from the Mackinac Center about their priorities for the year coming. And at 11 o'clock, McIntosh and Associates will be with us on Focus. But for this hour, we're going to talk about an organization I did not realize has been around for 60 years. It is the Read Association of Saginaw County. With us, its director and president this morning. We say good morning to Samantha Engel.
Good morning
to
Hi.
you. Hi, and thanks for coming in this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You've been there how long now, Samantha?
A little over 2 years.
So what drew you to the Read Association? Just out of curiosity, I know your background is history.
Yeah, I obviously, in order to learn history, one needs to be a proficient reader.
Good start.
Yeah, and I think there's an importance in being able to understand the world around you, whatever that is, history or current events or literature, art, whatever. And at the foundation of that is reading. And, you know, there are so many articles that come out. And when you look at test scores, you know, we're kind of in a literacy crisis.
I was going to say,
Yes.
Don't look at test scores.
No, or do, and then care about the work that we're doing. But yeah, and so when you see that and you realize that, you know, so many doors are closed to people, just employment, healthcare, you know, figuring out who they are in the world because they can't read, it's was something that I felt called to.
I have to ask this question. I mean, you know, and it's been a long time since I've been in school, but I remember in school, the very young grades, I mean, reading was forefront, you know, the basics, reading, math, they were all in the forefront of your education. Where did we go wrong? Why have we lost this battle with literacy of all things?
You know, there are a lot of different things that people theorize, right? Because they're all sort of theories when they look at things, whether it's sort of the rise of the digital age and, you know, parents are very engrossed in their phones. And so there are studies out there that show that parents are saying far fewer words around their children. So even when they are babies and toddlers, before they're reaching school, they're being exposed to far fewer words than, you know, I was or you were when we were kids. So that's a piece of the puzzle. COVID and the, you know, quarantines and the shutdowns and the digital learning that happened during that time, that has definitely played an impact. And you see how, depending on where a student was when that happened, if they were in kindergarten or first grade, you know, they were missing out on those foundational years.
But I would say that COVID exacerbated the situation.
Yes, it did. Yep.
The situation was there before COVID.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that, you know, that's a recent thing. But when you look at, you know, some of those test scores, they were already starting to go down. There have been, you know, there are different theories on the best way to teach reading. And so there are certain curriculums, I suppose you could say, that were being used and touted as being great and are now being moved away from. And they're returning to that focus on phonemic awareness and phonics and that kind of thing. And, you know, the Hooked on Phonics commercials I saw as a kid. And so, you know, or just overall the socioeconomic condition of the country, when families, you know, have to work multiple jobs and maybe they're not home to read to their kid every night before bed, and schools don't have the funding that they need to provide them the individualized attention to the kiddos who need that sort of extra help. All of these little pieces play into this bigger issue of, you know, right now they say that over half of the adult population in the country is reading at a 6th grade level or below. And in
what does that mean?
Yeah, so there are, and I don't know all the ins and outs of exactly how these surveys are conducted, but there is sort of a national organization that goes and looks at. So
if you read this, do you understand it?
Yep. So it looks at just reading fluency, comprehension, numeracy, so recognizing and understanding Numbers is also part of that puzzle. And so it depends on which test you're looking at. And so you'll often see the headline that, that I just said, right, that over 50% of the adult population reads below or at a 6th grade level. And so, that's looking at a bunch of these different assessments that are done. There are international assessments, there are national assessments. And so that's what they're kind of culling that information from.
Yeah, and I understand the parents and what they do, and they get busy and all that, because I know, and I have to be honest, we didn't read to our 2 sons like we should have. But fortunately for us, they grew up fine. But in my case, because of what I do, I'm constantly doing research online and wherever. It's the time I'm done with that in the day, the last thing I want to do is go home and read more.
Right. Yeah.
So life does have an impact on it. No doubt about it. So how would you describe the mission of the Read Association?
Yeah, our mission is simple. It sounds simple. It is to improve the reading scores of children and help them discover the joy of reading. Because, you can get somebody who reads well, but if they don't find joy in that activity, they're not going to continue to practice it and continue to move up. So I enjoy that we have and discover the joy of reading at the end of our mission. So that is very simply what we do.
It's a national movement, isn't
it? There are literacy organizations, throughout the state, throughout the country, but the Read Association is its own nonprofit that began here in Saginaw County.
It's not associated with any other Read Association, no national umbrella.
No, we are our own thing. There was actually in 1966 in the summer, I think it was the 4th of July, there was a murder that was committed in downtown Saginaw. And it was found out that they were these, 2 individuals who, I can't remember how old they were at the time, but they had dropped out of high school and, they couldn't read. And so all of a sudden the city, some city leaders, a lot of like pastors at churches and things came together and said, holy moly, like, let's look at this, connection between illiteracy, dropping out, crime, all of that kind of thing. And so we always say it was a grassroots movement because truly people came together and said, let's work on this with kids. And so Read operated kind of just as this loose group of volunteers. They were meeting at churches, reading with kids. And then in the early 70s, they actually became, an official registered 501c3 nonprofit. But we use 66 as our founding year.
So, if we were to look at the various programs, then I would have to assume one of them would be mentoring.
Yes. Mentoring is the OG, the original Read program. And the idea was pairing an adult volunteer, we have high school and college age mentors too, but, an older volunteer, they're given a curriculum and some training, and they then work with a student. Today, it mostly takes place in schools, and they go to a school and spend a half hour with one kid, a half hour one-on-one with one kid. They're usually meeting with 2 kids, though, so half hour per kid once a week during the school year.
So in order for an organization to succeed, there has to be a demand for service.
Yes.
Are youngsters willing to sit down and learn to read?
They are, yeah. And of course, you find those hesitant or combative kids who don't think they need to learn how to read. And unfortunately, so much of that can be, just things they've picked up from their environment and seeing their family members or not being encouraged to pick up a book at home. But we also find a lot of kids who they know that they need to do this. They know they need to get better at it. And especially if they're reaching middle school age and they're really struggling, we find a lot of those kids are eager to figure it out, to find the key to unlock reading.
Do you get referrals from teachers?
Yeah, so the mentor program specifically, there's usually somebody in the school who's coordinating the program, and they'll reach out to the teachers, and the teachers find the students who need that extra help. And so we don't usually get our program started until mid-October so that the teachers have time to figure out who it is in their classroom that needs the help.
So, it is the Reed Association of Saginaw County. Are there other organizations, like does Bay or Midland have similar organizations?
So Midland County has the Legacy Center, and they do a lot of tutoring and different, even ESL things and some adult education. And so they're kind of a counterpart in Midland County. Bay has one as well. I'm not sure about Genesee County. Lapeer County has one. I've spoken to their director. They're around, yeah.
So is it easier to teach a youngster to be more literate or an adult?
So Reed currently doesn't have adult literacy programs, so I can't speak to that. I know that it would be a very different approach, obviously, but essentially the same skills and the same building blocks that you would be needing to teach. I would assume, a child, it probably feels more natural teaching, or something. But yeah, I mean, it's the same stuff. So
talking to Samantha Engel, she's director and president of the Reed Association of Saginaw County, and we will be back with more after these notes. Let me take a moment to talk about your tires, because if you haven't noticed, winter is here, still is, even though we're going to be above freezing today. It's still winter, folks. And there is a difference between your winter tires and your all-season tires. And if you stop by Quick Lane Freeland, they can tell you all about it. They also sell all their tires at just $5 over cost. Now, I've asked John from Quick Lane Freeland to describe the difference between the winter tire and your all-season tire.
Hello, Art. Yes, winter tires are made with a pliable rubber compound that includes silica to stay flexible and maintain grip in freezing temperatures, unlike harder all-season tires which stiffen and lose traction in the cold. This flexible compound allows the tire to better conform to the road surface, providing superior grip and traction on snow and ice to keep you safe.
Thanks, John. Stop in today. Quick Lane Freeland, where you get all your routine maintenance done. It's part of the McDonald Ford complex right there on M47. Quick Lane Freeland and McDonald Ford, two names standing ready to help you with all your automotive needs for 2026.
It could be the best years.
Joe, we're talking to Samantha Engel. She is the director and president of the Reed Association of Saginaw County. So what is the Barton Reading and Spelling Program?
So we utilize that the Barton program for our tutoring program. So this is a specific curriculum that was developed by a reading specialist that is often very successful for kids who have dyslexia, because it starts every student back at those foundational skills of, recognizing and understanding your different letter sounds. And it pairs those sounds with actual physical motion, which, and I don't know too much about the brain science of this. Our Family Literacy Center coordinator, she studies this, and we're having a dyslexia workshop next week. But when you pair the physical motion with the sounds, it helps cross some of those, brain synapses that aren't functioning the way that they do in, the average reader compared to the dyslexic reader.
So who teaches these programs, and are they volunteers? Or?
They are, yes. So Reed has around 200 volunteers.
Wow.
Yes, large volunteer corps. We are 2 full-time, 2 part-time staff members, and then this whole army of Reed volunteers who are amazing. And so our mentors are volunteers as well as our tutors. So our Family Literacy Center coordinator oversees the tutoring program, and she trains all of the tutors, but it is that volunteer who then meets with a student twice per week for 1-hour sessions to help build them to whatever their grade level fluency would be.
So, how much training is involved? If a volunteer comes in and says, I want to volunteer to be a reading mentor, what happens?
Yeah, so mentoring has less training. Mentoring is a far looser sort of, you have a reading supporter, somebody who's going to be there to help a child read through a book, ask comprehension questions if they're having comprehension problems, and sometimes just be a friend to a student who needs a supportive friend that
less
day.
skilled than the Barton system.
Yes. But even for the Barton system, it is a scripted program. And so the volunteer comes in and they have a 1.5-ish hour training session, sometimes 2 hours, where you sort of go through, what the first book, the first level is, and you kind of learn the motions and the rhythm to everything, because it's very repetitive. And then our center coordinator is available. So as you're moving through the program with your student, if you need any support or you need a bit of training before you hit a new level, she's there to do that with you. But you don't need to have any kind of education background or teaching experience in order to be a tutor, because the program lays out exactly what you're supposed to do and say.
It would seem to me, because of the multiple senses used, this will be a fun thing for youngsters to go through. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, well, two parts, I guess. Yes, because you are moving and, you're going through and you're reading. It can be repetitive. So, they can lose interest a little bit, especially if we have a student who has ADHD or something like that. And a lot of the tutoring students have, something like that, the dyslexia. We screen all the kids to make sure that's the right program for them. But, they're also coming after a school day. So that can, they've had to sit and pay attention at school all day. And so we do try to make it fun, though. Our Family Literacy Center is a very warm environment. There's break times. We have after school snacks. Most of the time, the tutor gets to know their students. So they know when the wiggles are coming and they need to get some wiggles out. Or, you can take a break and play a little game for a few minutes before you dive back into the book. So the tutor very quickly learns how to, match the kid.
So a youngster is paired with let's look at Barton for a minute. Youngster is paired with a Barton tutor.
Mm-hmm.
How long are they involved with that youngster, over what period of time?
Yeah, so we generally ask for a year commitment. And a lot of the students we have are in there for a year to a year and a half, because, again, they're coming in probably as a third or fourth grader. That seems like a common age student we have coming in, some second graders. And so the older you are, the longer you'll be in the program, because, again, you're starting back at the beginning, learning your vowel sounds, learning your syllables, that kind of thing.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you're third grade or fifth grade, you start the same place.
Yes, you can get through it faster, perhaps, depending on your skill level or how old you are. But everybody starts at the beginning, so we're not missing any of those fundamentals. And then you move up to whatever grade level you should be at.
And how is that measured?
So to move through I have two-part answer. So to move through the levels, you have to be successful. So, in order, you're not going to move on to the next book if you're struggling, in the last quarter of one book. So if you're moving through, you're progressing. But our Literacy Center coordinator, she's actually a retired teacher, so she has a lot of experience with this. And she also will do assessment evaluations throughout as well. If she thinks, this student's been in a while, it seems like they should be getting close, like, let's do an assessment and see where they're at.
I assume, bad word I know, but
yeah.
Is there a standardized assessment test to determine reading?
Yes. So there are several different tools that are used. For instance, when kids start in the mentor program, we do an oral fluency assessment. So they are given, and this is something that we don't put together. It's a very standard assessment. They're given a grade level reading passage, and they read for a minute, and you count how many words they can get through in that minute. There's also, there are tests that go over sight words. So of all of these things kind of put together is what Linda is often doing with these tutoring students specifically.
It's interesting, though, if the student's reading and I'm counting words,
mm-hmm.
What does that tell me about apprehension?
Yeah. So we track the success of our program for the mentoring program as well by looking at comprehension ability. And so that is more I like to say the oral fluency gives you a number, but a number doesn't tell a complete story. And so we're asking the mentors at the end of the school year, did you notice any increase in confidence in your student? Because when a kiddo can't read, their confidence is usually low. And as that skill builds, they become more confident. Are they able to, comprehend better? And so they're given, depending on, again, it all depends on the student and what they're struggling with. So they're given some ideas on how to work on comprehension with them throughout the school year. The Barton system is largely focused on, though, those abilities to read, not to recognize words, but to sound out words. And so that's sort of looking at that much more specifically, especially early on, than the mentor program, where we're trying to really look at, do they not fight you when you pull out a book when you get there every week? And yeah, their comprehension abilities and things like that.
Barton almost seems to be tailored toward dyslexic.
It is. Yeah, it was truly developed to, specifically help dyslexic students. It can work with, other students as well. But yes, it is specifically designed that way.
Samantha Engel's our guest. She's the director and president of Read Association. More coming up after these notes.
At the Saginaw Children's Zoo,
Physical location.
It is, yeah. So the Literacy Center opened in the fall of 2022, so before I was at Read. And we are located at 100 South Jefferson on the second floor. So we're right next to the Castle Museum downtown.
And what happens at the Literacy Center?
A variety of things happen there. So that's where our tutoring, the Barton tutoring program, takes place. We do have tutors because we are a county-wide program. So we do have tutors meeting with students, in Frankenmuth and Thomas Township, different places. But that's sort of the hub of where all tutoring things, take place, and kids meet there with their tutors. We have a weekly pre-K story time that takes place on Wednesdays at 11. Our family literacy program, Raising Readers Academy, that's hosted several times throughout the year. It's a multi-week program. So actually this week is a starting week. So the program will be 10 weeks and 2 sessions, Wednesdays and Thursdays, will be taking place there. So we are just trying to fill the space with all kinds of literacy programs. A summer program.
Is there a cost to use these programs?
No, everything is free. We care a lot about educational equity. So we want to make sure that we can get, the tutors to the students who need them regardless of the cost.
Which begs the next question.
Yeah.
How is the Read Association funded?
Yeah, so we are largely grant funded, as well as a variety of wonderful business partners who sponsor us every year, and a whole community of individual donors. So without local foundations, United Way, the individuals who've cared about us for so very long, Read would not be here.
So you're a 501c3?
We are, yes. Yep.
So all the funding is private. You don't get any government funding?
We do currently. It'll be expiring soon. The term will be up, but we do currently have a grant through the state of Michigan. But anything that we have is
grant,
something that we apply for. There's no regular funds, funneled to us that way.
The governor has announced a big push. She wants to see the literacy improve.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a future budget item, so it's not current. Would you expect the state to be a bigger participant in what you do?
Not necessarily. Again, I think a lot of their focus, and rightly so, should be to the schools to make sure there are the reading interventionists and the supplies that the schools need, and the curriculums that need to be in place, and new trainings. There's going to be some changes regarding dyslexia testing coming out soon, where I believe, now I'm going to speak out of turn, so don't come after me if I'm wrong, but I believe within the next year or so, all students in schools, public schools, are going to be assessed for dyslexia.
It seems to me, maybe it's a misconception, I don't know. It just seems to me we hear more about dyslexia today, and I know more people who say they're dyslexic.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that big a problem in this country?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there are a lot of those things, and you'll hear that about, ADHD. When I was a kid, most people weren't ADHD or, the autism spectrum. And so, dyslexia as well, as we learn more about it and are able to assess kids earlier on and understand what it means and how it affects them, naturally there are going to be more people who know that they have dyslexia instead of, well, I just really had a hard time reading when I was in school. And so that can only help because, then the family knows, okay, we need to find somebody who can work with our kiddo to help them, or the hope would be that the schools, again, would have more resources to be able to help those kids, to work through and learn to work with their dyslexia. But I know when I was younger, I always just thought that dyslexia meant you flip the letters around, right? And it's so much more complex than that. And again, I'm no dyslexia specialist. We have other people on staff who are digging into that and figuring out what that means and understanding it. But we just know a lot more about what's actually happening in the brain of a dyslexic person now than we used to.
Is it reversible? Is it curable?
I don't think that it's not curable, but you learn how to work with it. And so, by using like a system like the Barton system, it really allows kids to slowly build the skills that, they will need to know how to figure out how to read. So if they can work through that, awareness and the recognition of these letter sounds, then they will be able to have those building blocks to take further into life.
It's amazing. If you don't have dyslexia, it's hard to visualize what it is. Mm-hmm. If I see letters in a proper formation, I see letters in the proper formation. I can't imagine what it would be like to see it. I can't understand how I could see it otherwise than what my eyes show me. Mm-hmm. It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. And like you said at the beginning, my background's in history, so I did not go to school personally to understand what dyslexia is. So this is my understanding of it. And even, teachers, unless you have sort of that special education focus, and again, that tide is shifting, but you didn't spend a whole lot of time learning about dyslexia either. So
you may not have an answer for this, but do you know, are dyslexics more likely to have other underlying problems?
I'm not sure. I don't know about that. Yeah.
We'll ponder that.
Yes.
Break. Come back with one final segment with Samantha Engel, Director and President of the Reed Association of Saginaw County.
Retirement is more than
Back with you in studio with me, Samantha Engel, Director and President of the Reed Association of Saginaw. And I know that from time to time you've done events. We used to broadcast from the Breakfast for Books event. So what's coming up?
Yeah, so we have 2 new March events this year. We're hoping to reach more kids, provide more activities for them, and we're hosting 2 so that we can try to reach kiddos and families from different areas of the county. So on Saturday, March 7th, we'll be at the Swan Valley Performing Arts Center, so the Swan Valley School District. Yep, and that will be from noon to 2, and we'll be hosting a free book fair. So families can register their kids ahead of time, and when they show up, they'll be given, some fun fake money, and they'll be able to, I'm putting in air quotes, shop for 3 books that they will be able to keep and take home for themselves. So we plan to have a fun setup that feels very much like a book fair for perhaps some kids who've never been able to shop at a book fair before. And then we'll have other partners there with us, and the school is actually going to be doing a free family movie after the event in the Performing Arts Center there. So this is open to far more than just Swan Valley School District families. It's open to everybody. And so we hope that this location would be very convenient for the Hemlock, Merrill, St. Charles region of the county. Saginaw County's large.
Yeah.
And then the next week, we're doing basically the same thing on our part with the free book fair. And we're doing it at the YMCA. So we still wanted to make sure and have an event in the city that was accessible to city families as well. And so the Y will have some of their own activities. I've heard, children's Zumba or yoga thrown about. And we'll have our book fair. And again, some community partners like different library systems will be there at both events. Different museums. Shoemaker Farms is going to be at both events having some different activities. So it should be a free, fun family event, and the YMCA one is from 11 to 1, and that's on Saturday, March 14th.
Where do you get your books from?
We purchase them largely from Scholastic, and we actually have a grant from the Harvey Randall Wicks Foundation, which is helping to support these events for us this year and the next couple of years. So we're hoping that this is very successful and lots of kids have a fun time. I love, as an adult, still going to the library to shop for books or going to Barnes & Noble to actually shop for books. So I hope that these families experience the same fun.
Just out of curiosity, in this modern age, some folks have moved away from the printed page and gone to the Kindle, the electronic readers. Has it made any impact?
So